I talk to people all the time, and they tell me about their life. They tell me about their pain. They tell me about that one day, that one phone call, that one conversation, that one moment when everything just stopped. The world froze. And the person they were just seconds before was gone. And they're left standing there in the rubble of what used to be their reality, asking just one question: what now? We've all had them. Those seismic fractures in the timeline of our existence. But here's the real question that haunts us in the middle of the night. The one we're afraid to answer: can a single moment, just one, really change your life forever? Or do we just get up, brush ourselves off, and eventually go back to the same person we were before? Tonight, we're not just going to talk about that moment. We're going to dissect it. We're going to find the purpose in that pain. And I'm here to tell you right now that if you let it, that moment ain't the end of your story. It's the fuel for your greatness. Let's get into it. You see, we operate under a fundamental misapprehension about transformation. We assume that profound, life-altering change is a product of careful planning, a New Year's resolution made in a moment of quiet optimism. But that is not how the psyche works. The comfortable mind, the sated mind, is a conservative mind. It seeks equilibrium. It seeks to preserve the status quo, even a miserable one, because the devil you know is always cognitively lighter than the angel you don't. Real permanent change, the kind that reorients your entire being, is almost never born in comfort. It is forged in the crucible of necessity. It is a function of crisis. Think of it as a psychological breaking point. You are carrying a burden day after day. It could be the burden of a failing career, a toxic relationship, a pervasive sense of your own inadequacy, and you adapt to the weight. You learn to walk with a limp. You tell yourself, this is just how it is, but then something happens. One more piece of straw is placed on the camel's back. It is rarely the largest piece you've ever carried, but it is the final one. And in that moment, the structure breaks. The pain of maintaining your current position, the humiliation, the despair, the quiet resentment, abruptly and catastrophically exceeds the perceived pain of doing the difficult work to change. That is the ignition moment. It's not a gentle nudge, it's a system failure. It's your subconscious mind, your entire nervous system, finally rebelling against the pathology of your present circumstances and screaming, "Oh no, go!" This is not a choice in the common sense of the word. It's a compelled response to an unbearable reality. It is the universe or your own soul handing you a bill for the life you've been deferring and demanding payment in full right now. Now, when that crisis hits, when you're lying there in the wreckage of what you thought your life was, the most natural and perhaps the most devastating interpretation is to see it as a final verdict. You read the event as a pronouncement on your character, your capabilities, your very worth. I am a failure. This is what I deserved. This is the end of the road. And that is a terrifying, paralyzing conclusion. It's like being found guilty and sentenced in a single moment with no chance for appeal. But that is a catastrophic error in interpretation, a fundamental misreading of the narrative of your own life. What if you were to shift that perspective? What if that moment of devastation is not a full stop, a period at the end of your story, but rather a brutal, necessary, and emphatic comma? A comma forces a pause. It creates a separation from what came before and allows for a new clause to begin. It is a mark of continuation, not termination. The moment you were fired, the moment a relationship shattered, the moment you faced a profound loss or failure, these are not the final words written about you. They are the painful, jarring pause that separates the person you were operating on a set of failed assumptions or misguided paths from the person you are now being compelled to become. This is the universe's harsh but necessary grammar. It's interrupting a sentence that was leading nowhere, or worse, in a catastrophe, and giving you a chance to start a new, more coherent and more truthful clause. The old story wasn't working. It was built on a foundation that could no longer hold the weight of your existence. The collapse, therefore, is not a condemnation of you, but a condemnation of the faulty structure you were inhabiting. It's a wake-up call to stop building on sand. It's a demand to find bedrock, no matter how deep you have to dig. So you've had this moment of ignition, this crisis that shattered your old shell, and you've correctly interpreted it not as a verdict, but as a wake-up call. But here is where another profound error lies in wait, the belief that the moment itself is the transformation. That because the event was so powerful, so catalytic, the change will now happen automatically. This is a dangerous fantasy. The moment is the spark, but it is not the fire. The spark can ignite the tinder, but if you do not tend to it, if you do not consistently feed it with fuel, it will gutter out into a pile of ash, and you will be left in a colder, darker place than you were before, now burdened with the memory of a light you failed to maintain. The real permanent change, the kind that rewires your nervous system and alters your destiny, is manufactured in the infinitesimal mundane and often brutal decisions you make in the days, weeks, and months that follow. It is built in the daily grind. It is the choice to get out of bed when every fiber of your being screams to hide. It is the choice to open the book instead of turning on the television. It is the choice to swallow your pride and make the difficult phone call, to practice the skill you are terrible at, to save the money instead of spending it on a fleeting distraction. This is the unglamorous architecture of redemption. Each of those choices is a brick. Alone, a single brick is meaningless. But laid with consistency and intention, day after day, they begin to form a structure. A new foundation, a new you. The moment of crisis provides the blueprint and the motivation. The searing memory of that pain becomes the fuel for your discipline. When you want to quit, you remember that feeling. And you ask yourself, have I suffered enough to go back there? Or will I suffer through the discipline required to never feel that again? Now, this leads us to a crucial psychological truth, one that sits at the very heart of resilience. You cannot always control the events that befall you. The market crashes, the diagnosis arrives, the betrayal happens. These are facts. They exist in the world, independent of your desires. But there is a space, a critical, sovereign space between the event itself and your response to it. And in that space lies all your power. The event is objective, but its meaning is not predetermined. Your interpretation is not a passive reception of data. It is an active, moral act of creation. You are the one who assigns the value. You are the one who writes the story. You can look at a devastating loss and interpret it as evidence of your inherent worthlessness, a confirmation of the universe's hostility towards you. That is a choice, albeit a catastrophic one. Or you can choose to see it as a brutal but necessary lesson, a pruning of a branch that was no longer bearing fruit, no matter how familiar it felt. This isn't about naive positivity. It's about ruthless, pragmatic meaning-making. It's about asking, given that this terrible thing has happened, what narrative can I construct that will give me the strength to proceed, rather than the excuse to perish? One perspective makes you a victim of circumstance, a leaf blown by a malevolent wind. The other makes you a student of tragedy, however unwilling, gathering the shattered pieces to build something stronger. Your perspective is the lens through which you view your entire existence. You can choose a lens that magnifies your helplessness and obscures any path forward, or you can grind a lens that brings your agency and potential into razor-sharp focus. When your life is proceeding comfortably, your motivations can remain superficial. You're driven by wants, by desires, by the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of minor inconveniences. But these are weak motivations. They shatter under real pressure. When a true crisis hits, it acts like a solvent. It dissolves all those fragile, ego-driven whys. The desire for a nicer car, for more Instagram likes, for the approval of people whose opinions are fickle. These things evaporate instantly in the heat of genuine suffering, and you are left with a terrifying vacuum. This is the crucial function of the crisis. It strips you down to nothing. It forces you to confront the most fundamental question. What is left when everything I thought was important has been taken away? Why should I even get up off this floor? And it is in that emptiness that you have the opportunity, the dire necessity to find a why that is solid, a why that is unshakable, a why that is heavier than your suffering. This is no longer about what you want, it's about what you are responsible for. It's about a purpose that is so deeply entwined with your identity and your values that it can bear the weight of your despair. Perhaps it's your responsibility to your children, to ensure they don't inherit a legacy of defeat. Perhaps it's a duty to a talent you have squandered, a sense that you owe the world the fullest expression of your potential. Perhaps it's a commitment to prove to your younger self that their suffering was not in vain. This kind of why is not a flimsy wish. It is a gravitational force. It pulls you through the misery of the daily grind because the action is no longer about achieving a feeling. It is about fulfilling a responsibility. The moment of crisis connects you to this deeper current of meaning, a purpose so potent that it transforms obligation into dedication and pain into fuel. And if you manage to do that, if you navigate the crisis, find your why, and rebuild your life through those daily acts of disciplined meaning-making, you might be tempted to believe the journey is complete. You have secured your own stability. You have solved your own problem, and that is a monumental achievement. But it is not the final stage of this transformation. There is a deeper, more profound responsibility that emerges from the other side of suffering. To believe that your redemption is solely for your own benefit is to misunderstand the fundamental architecture of human existence. We are not isolated atoms. We are nodes in a network. Your suffering, and more importantly, your victory over it, is a piece of data that did not exist in the world before. It is evidence. It is proof of concept. And that proof is not yours to hoard. It is a resource for the community. When you integrate the lessons of your darkest moment, you are no longer just a survivor. You become a living testament to the possibility of survival. Your very existence becomes a counter-argument to the despair of someone else who is currently lying in the rubble of their own life, believing, as you once did, that no one could possibly understand and that no escape is possible. Your story in its raw, authenticated truth becomes a map. Your mess has been organized into a message. Your test has been passed, and in doing so, it has been transformed into a testimony. This is the ultimate alchemy of suffering. To take the lead weight of your personal hell and transmit it into gold for someone else. It gives a terrible beauty and a profound meaning to the pain you endured. It wasn't meaningless cruelty. It was the price of admission to a role you did not choose, but were chosen for, the role of a God. And so we return to our initial haunting question: can a single moment truly change your life forever? The answer, as we have seen, is a resounding and complex yes. But not because the moment itself is magic. It is because that moment of searing crisis, that unbearable fracture in your world, is not an end. It is a brutal, involuntary beginning. It is the spark that ignites a necessary fire, the wake-up call that shatters a comfortable lie. It forces you to find a why heavier than your suffering and provides the fuel for the daily discipline of building a new self brick by brick. It demands you choose a perspective that grants agency over victimhood. And if you have the courage to walk that path, to transform your mess into a message and your test into a testimony, then that single moment achieves its ultimate purpose. It forever changes not only your life, but also empowers you to change the lives of others. The moment provides the catalyst, but the forever change. That is a choice you make every single day thereafter. Now go make it.